We are talking food here on the Beach Channel. I'm Randy Kassewitz, and we are in the company today of hot dog royalty, as we're with David Arbetter. The name Arbetter and hot dogs are synonymous. And first, tell me the quick history of Arbetters, because I've been going there since I'm a little kid,
Right.
and I'm an old man now. But Arbetters is legendary here in South Florida.
Well, I'm 4 years older than you, Randy. So, but no, Arbetters, we opened in 58, really. I put down 59 just because I like to be fanatical about, I hate when people over exaggerate how long they've been in a place. But we opened really in 58 on Flagler in Miami, Old Miami, like around 15th Street, 14th Street, somewhere down there. And then a few years after that, we moved to 8th Street and 58th. I was in there, it was like 5840 8th Street. And we were there until 1971. And then we moved to where we are now on Bird Road. And my dad had a handshake agreement with the guy who owned the complex on 8th Street, and he saw how busy we were, and he got jealous. This guy Ernie, and he kicked us out, and he opened up Ernie's Hot Dogs, which went out of business a few months later, and then we ended up on Bird in a better spot for us. So
Bird Road, really, I believe, was one of the culinary meccas. I mean, South Florida today is a foodie's paradise,
Right.
but some of the best restaurants, some of the Miami staples, this is going back when the Orange Bowl was still around,
right.
started right there on Bird Road. I mean, I grew up in the general vicinity, and I remember going to Arbetters as a kid. I still take my kids there today. They love it.
Thank you.
Though I don't live in the area anymore. I mean, there was the old China-made restaurant. There was Frankie's Pizza, Lila's Steakhouse. Those were legendary, iconic restaurants.
Well, and specifically Lila's. So Lila's was over in what was originally really what we called Westchester. Westchester wasn't Westchester. Westchester was only a shopping center on
right.
Coral Way, in 87th. And that was Westchester. And that's where Lila's was. And then Lila's, the owner of Lila's is this guy, Pepe. And he moved over to Bird Road and opened up Rio Cristal, which was famous because just like Lila's, they had that giant
Palomino steak, I think it was.
Palomino steak with the fries, the papitas covering it like a foot over it.
Yep.
And we used to go there and talk with the owner, Pepe, from Cuba, nicest guy ever. And that place was mobbed. And they had the best flan to this day, except my buddy Burger Bee says his mom makes probably the only better flan that I've ever had than at Rio Cristal. But it's still there today. The daughter, I think the granddaughter owns it. And they do okay, not as good as they did back then. But, but that's one of the places. China Made, you mentioned. China Made was on Bird. And my family, you have to remember, in the 60s, not a lot of people ate out. Most people ate in every single meal. But my family, because we were always in the restaurant business, we would travel all around Dade, Monroe, Broward counties, and go to all these. I've been to so many restaurants that a lot of people had never even heard of. And China Made was probably the best Chinese food in all of Dade and Broward at that time. And there was just lines and lines of people out the door. And I don't think there's as good Chinese now as there was back then, just an example.
I mean, there's Tropical Chinese still on Bird Road, which comes around. I mean, people talk about that being one of the best in town. But you're right; that was a different era of restaurants, and that was a different area at the time as well. That was a very. It's more Hispanic today, that general area, but it was really,
a little Hispanic back then. It was always becoming more and more Hispanic, because I grew up. Basically, the nexus of my universe is 87th Avenue, Galloway.
Yep.
And then, a guy is old Tom Miami when he says Galloway. 87th Avenue and Bird, and 87th Avenue and Miller, and 87th Avenue and Coral Way. That is really the nexus of my universe. I'm a Blue Lakes, Glades, Southwest guy.
Yep, absolutely.
Right.
You're old Miami.
Old Miami.
There was also a pizza place right in that same area. Where I remember when you picked up a pizza, they would throw a slice on top of the box. I've never seen that done again.
I've been eating there since I was 0 years old, basically, and it's called Frankie's Pizza. The Pasquarellas still own it. Roxanne and Renee, they're still very good friends of ours. And, like Roxanne used to be like Miss Tall World.
I remember her pictures are still in there.
Yeah, yeah. And they are the nicest people. They do a phenomenal job of running Frankie's. And it's still pretty much exactly how it was, just as Arbetter's is, more or less. I've renovated it, but I've kept it the same.
It still looks the same.
It still looks the same.
I hadn't been there in 10 years. I brought my son down there maybe 6 months ago. He was like, this is the coolest place I've ever seen, Dad. And we live on Miami Beach.
He said that?
And we live on Miami Beach with all these fancy, high-flying places. But he loved Arbetters. Back to Arbetters.
Right.
Your dad starts it. Never in your wildest dreams as a kid did you ever imagine 60 years later the place is still going.
No, I couldn't imagine. As a matter of fact, the shirt I'm wearing now on the back of it says 65 years. So we're 65 years strong. No, we couldn't imagine that it would have lasted so long. We're lucky. Look, if you last 5 years in the restaurant business, you're the 95th percentile. No, most places go out of business within 5 years. We lasted. We've been going 65 years. I would love to be alive, or for my son to be alive and have it at 100 years. But, this is all we do. We love it. I can't even really explain how much I love what I do.
No, you can hear it in your voice. You can see it in your eyes. Let me ask you, how often when you're there do you get somebody coming in and says, my grandfather used to come here? I mean, that's got to be, I guess it's good news, bad news. The good news is the legacy continues. The bad news is you feel old.
Well, yeah, feeling old to me doesn't bother me. It's just like, as long as I'm in the restaurant and I'm talking with people, I don't care. Yeah, yes, I'm getting older, but that is the greatest thing ever. When you sit there and talk to people and they say, or the granddaughter comes in and says, my grandfather took me here, or my dad took me here, or, son or daughter. That's the coolest thing ever. Then you see them with their children, like 1 or 2 years old. I always walk up to them. I'm like, good job starting them young.
My son and daughters are third generation Arbetters customers.
Gosh,
so
that's what I'm talking about.
It really is. It's pretty cool when you bring them down there and they love hot dogs, and then they get the French fries, and it's really it's really unique. It's Miami's not that old of a city,
right?
So to talk about a restaurant being 65 years old, it's really incredible.
Well, a pretty cool story. My family's been in Miami since the 30s, which is pretty good, for quite a while. Our next door neighbor, a place called I think it's called Highland Park. It's right across from Miami Jackson, where downtown.
Yep.
And that's where my mom grew up. And our next door neighbor then was Pasco Angelica in the 30s, okay? And his son, John Angelica, started working at Arbetter's in 1972, 50 years ago-ish, and he's still there today working.
That's amazing.
And he runs it, basically.
That's an amazing story. A lot of Miami history. All right, let's talk hot dogs.
Okay.
I'm looking at the chili dog right there.
Right.
That's your signature recipe or your family's signature recipe. I know my dad's favorite when he was around. He used to always get the hot dog with the sauerkraut and the mustard on it. What's that one called?
That's the mustard kraut.
The mustard kraut.
Which I'll show you. There's a picture coming up of that.
But talk about the chili dog and this recipe, because you guys are known for that dog.
Yeah, well, first of all, the chili recipe, my mom was born in Italy. And, for a short time she was in Italy. But our family in Italy, and I've been there to our little town, Arquata del Tronto, it goes back like 1,000 years that we've been there. She got that recipe from the old gravy, they called it, which is Sunday tomato sauce on spaghetti. And she sort of took that tomato sauce recipe and invented the chili recipe back in the 50s.
Wow.
Even before we started Arbetter, she was making that chili. And when we first started on Flagler, this is an incredible story, but it's 100% true. We lived on Westwood Lake, which is very far west, which is, like 109th Avenue is what we lived on. And she would take the chili, get on a bus with my brother in the 50s, and on an actual bus, where you have to pay the quarter, and take the chili down to my dad, because he had no real cooking facilities back then. And she would bring the chili in. He could heat it up, but he couldn't really You know, it was a very small place. And that is unheard of today. Probably illegal, you know. But that's how she did it.
Illegal back then.
Yeah. But, you know, back then you could get away with stuff like that. And that's how they started, that small and that humble.
Amazing. They talked about what's your most popular hot dog right now?
Well, it's a chili dog, and we make it.
I like that dog right there. Okay. I love the coleslaw dog.
Now that dog, that's a soubrette hot dog. We have the original hot dog we have at Arbetter's is a boiled, meat, pork and beef hot dog. Okay, without any casing. It's sort of a soft hot dog. It's a little more bland, but it's meant to go with the chili and our soft steamed bun. Really, the key is the steamed bun, the hot dog, which is. The original hot dog was more of a bland dog, and then the chili on top with onions a lot of times. And again, the chili is made homemade every single day, best ingredients. We've never changed the recipe. We never would. Once in a while, you get someone who says, "But it's not exactly the same as it was in the early '60s." And I said, "Look, I'm fanatical about not changing one single thing on the food. Now we've added, I think, one of the best dogs in the world, the soubrette all beef. That's the soubrette that they have at Grace Papaya in New York City, the exact same dog. It's a real soubrette. We put the logo right on Arbetter's. And we've had that now 8 years, also with our original dog. But I'll never change what
you have two types of dogs you can get?
We actually have like 4 or 5 different types of dogs. We have our original boiled dog, which we've never changed. Exact same dog we've always had. And then we have the soubrette natural casing, which is a 2-ounce dog. And, it's an 8-to-1 dog. And just like our boiled, same size. And then that has a natural casing on it. We grill it. We put a grill in. We grill it. We have the Grant Miller dog, we call it. It's the jumbo dog. And that dog is a 4-ounce dog. Okay. And then we have, it's the soubrette as well. And then we have a monster dog, which is a foot long, 8 ounces. It's gigantic. And we grill that as well. We'll make it however you want, and then we have a vegetarian. Believe it or not, we have a veggie dog too. Amazing. My dad would turn over in his grave.
I was gonna say all these dogs and choices. Your dad might be a little. May have steam coming out of his ears, not just the bun. Let me ask you.
Yeah.
So there's been this trend. We're always about bigger and better and more creative, and all these chefs putting a spin on common foods like we had forever.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hot dog, like gourmet hot dog places out there.
Right.
How have you been able to compete with all those kind of people?
Well, okay. I've spent probably in the last 5 years, I've spent about $650,000 at Arbetter's to redo everything. Now, I always said, I want you to come in and not know that I've redone one thing. Yeah. But everything is actually brand new.
I'm looking at dogs right there.
So let's talk about the dogs. We've added dogs, but I've never changed, our original dogs. But we've added a lot of dogs. And I had Mike Rosenthal as a FIU mathematics professor, and he told us, we told him exactly our toppings, how many dogs we have, how many buns. We have literally over 1 billion combinations.
Really?
That's the God's honest truth. Over 1 billion. Actually, it's way more than that.
Wow.
But it's over 1 billion. Sometimes I like saying 1 million because people wouldn't even believe there's 1 billion combinations. But we have 30 toppings now. We have 5 different dogs. We have 4 different buns. And so when you do the math on that, it's over 1 billion toppings that you could get.
You mentioned this rather large hot dog, the Grant Miller dog.
Yeah, that's the jumbo.
For people out there, I know you know Grant Miller. You go way back, but who is this Grant Miller, and how the hell did he get a hot dog?
Okay, Grant Miller is probably, he's one of my best friends. He's one of the best guys you'll ever meet. He's so Miami. He does so much for the community, but he owns the Miami Community newspapers, and there's like 12 of them. And he's just an incredible personality. And so we like to name dogs after people from Miami who are real people, but some of them are well known. And he's one of the guys that we named a dog after. And he just loves it. And people come in and order the Grant Miller, and a lot of times they'll order the dog. I'll walk right up to them while they're ordering it because I hear them order it. And I'll put them on the phone. I go, "You just ordered a Grant Miller. Here's Grant Miller." And they're like, "What?"
And what does he say? "Grant Miller here."
Grant Miller here. He goes nuts. And it's just incredible. But it's an exciting thing. And, it's funny, but, I have people come up to me almost every day when I'm at Arbiters. Look, I want a franchise. We want to do. We've had, at one time, 10 Arbiters.
That was my question.
Yeah.
Why not franchise? You have such a name. Why aren't there 10 Arbetters in Miami right now?
I'll tell you what. We've had 10 at one time before. One in Tampa, a few in Brevard County, one in Hialeah, one in North Miami. And I can just say this much. Generally speaking, it just takes a big commitment when you're running these places.
It's a different business.
It's a different business. And you really have to know exactly what to do. You can do it, but most people will try to change things. And you cannot change our simple system. You can't change. And that's the hardest thing in the world, is to be simple. Our chili recipe is very simple, and it's hard to get to simple. It's almost like genius when you get to simple. So I like to run Arbetters, and I really love it being the only Arbetters. There's actually one up in Cocoa still, in Cocoa, Florida right now.
Right.
But, it's and the guy who runs it's a great guy. But, we feel like as an Arbetter, we really know how to run these places. And we don't mess around. Same fries, the best fries in the world, same everything.
I want to get to that. 2 questions regarding that. You mentioned the fries.
Right.
They're legendary. Why are they so good? What do you do differently that Burger King or Lila's Steakhouse didn't do? Or McDonald's, because everyone loves McDonald's fries. What do you do differently? What makes those fries so good?
I'll tell everyone. Our fries are called Simplot fries, okay? They're so expensive that we buy... If someone buys fries and they buy a case of fries, they're like $18. Our fries are $50 per case. No one in their right mind would buy our fries. We bought the exact same fries that we've always bought. And they're the same fries that McDonald's use with their... And McDonald's fries are incredible, okay? Now, we can make a hand-cut homemade fries, but they're not as good, believe it or not, as our fries. Because our fries they only use a big russet Idaho potato. That's the only kind. And they're super extra long, XLF, extra long fry. And they're just absolutely the best. We use the best grease. We use the best quality. And that's one thing that people will change. The first thing someone does if they bought Arbetters is I want to get a higher margin. So profit. So I want to lower the quality. You cannot change anything. What I change is I put new sliding doors, new ceiling. And our place is so clean. I put wheels on all our old equipment and the new equipment, all wheels. So one of our restaurants, one of the cleanest in the county. We had 0 infractions once from the health inspection report. Yeah. So you have to, it's an incredible, you have to work like 100 hours a week.
Why haven't you ever added a burger to the menu for all these years?
Well, please try not to cuss at me again, swear at me, say the word burger.
Okay.
No, we had burgers in the 60s, but really my dad, who's from Boston, Mass, and started Arbetters from a place up in Boston that's called Joe and Nemo's, 2 cousins, Joe and Nemo. And it was without burgers. It was like steamed dogs. And the thing is, Arbetters, I could add burgers, but it would change Arbetters. I will add any hot dog, but I don't think I will ever add a burger because it changes the complexity of what we do. You walk in and you smell burger. I don't want that. I want you to walk in and smell hot dogs, think hot dogs, and I'll add any hot dog, but I won't add anything else, anything crazy.
Before we get to your location, which probably is an unnecessary question because everybody knows Arbetters,
right?
But there's probably a couple people that may not have heard of you. I'll never forget as a kid, and I didn't understand it back then, where it says in your restaurant, if the Red Sox win the World Series, free baked beans.
Right.
Like, what the hell is this bean? Where did that come from? And how did you make good on that?
Okay. My dad is from Boston, Massachusetts. He's actually from a little town north of Boston called Saugus. And when he was growing up, in the early 30s, my grandfather was a doctor, and he had the means to take him to the Red Sox games. They had season tickets back then in the 30s. And they would stop as a religion at Joe and Nemo's hot dog place. So my grandfather wanted him to be a doctor, and he disappointed him very much and became a hot dog connoisseur. But that's all my dad wanted to do since 1935, since he was 5 years old. And so he's a Boston Red Sox freak, he was. and a Celtic freak. You know, they didn't have the Patriots back then, and we didn't have, you know, and then coming down to Miami in the 50s, there was no Dolphins, there was no baseball team pro, there was no basketball team pro. It wasn't even a thought. Okay?
Just University of Miami.
Just University of Miami, which my dad played baseball. He played second base on the University of Miami Hurricanes. So my dad is a Hurricane. But so he loved Boston so much. From day one, he just said, if the Red Sox ever win the World Series, he's going to give free Boston baked beans. And we've done it. Okay, we did it in 75 when they didn't win, but remember Carlton Fisk?
Yes.
That year, they came so close to winning, and that's the first year we gave beans for the Red Sox. But we've done it for the Celtics many times because the Celtics have won. And he was my dad used to call him the Celtniks because he was so little, you know.
Yeah.
But that's it, man. We're original Boston fans. But of course, I'm a Miami fan first on everything because I'm born and raised down here. But truthfully, I've given personally Boston baked beans. We did it a few years ago when the Red Sox won.
Was your dad still alive when the Red Sox won the World Series?
No. Unfortunately, he died. I think it was actual 2 years before. I think he died in 2002, and they won it in 2004.
All right, talk about your location. For the one person out there watching that doesn't know where Arbetter's is and doesn't recognize the bright yellow building, where are you located?
Okay, we are on 87th Avenue. It's actually 87th Court, so it's a block west of 87th Avenue and right on Bird Road. You can't miss it. Some people call it the Big Yellow Bird, but we've always had that same yellow. It's the same sign on top, but we put a new, we redid our logo, from that time. But it's actually basically the same exact building. The only thing we've done is we put in brand new bathrooms. We put in brand new counter, but the counter is the original counter specs. I just put a stainless steel on the bottom, and then we had this famous artist in Miami do the top of it. But yeah,
very nice.
It's basically the same exact thing that we've always had.
It's like going back in Miami history, isn't
100%.
it? All right. Well, David, appreciate your time. This has been great going down a little Miami history food and et cetera, as we talked about Arbetter's hot dogs. And we will continue with more. I'm Randy Kassewitz, and we love our food here on the Beach Channel.